This is a Saturday Morning TVLog from Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. Welcome to another Saturday Morning TVLog, and this time around it's Freakazoid, brought to us by Warner Bros. Television Animation and Amblin Entertainment. Greetings, my fellow YouTubers. I'm the Big D, and this is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So this week's Saturday Morning TVLog is on one of the very first shows to ever premiere on the Kids WB block on the WB. It's Freakazoid, developed by Tom Ruegger and created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. The WB network premiered this show on September 9th, 1995, as it was one of the first shows to actually premiere on that particular block, as a matter of fact. Yes. Anyway, now of course this was one of their first shows to ever come. In 1995, the others included new episodes of Animaniacs, which was formerly on Fox, and I am going to be talking about that soon. Pinky and the Brain, a spin-off from it, which I am going to talk about that. So the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, and That's Warner Brothers, which would later become Bugs and Daffy, not to be confused with the Bugs and Daffy show on Cartoon Network. Alright, now, Freakazoid chronicles the adventures of the titular character, a crazy teenage superhero who fights crime in Washington, D.C. It also features mini episodes about the adventures of other superheroes. Now, of course, this was the third attempt to be produced by Warner and Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, who, of course, after recently producing Animaniacs and Tiny Toon Adventures. Of course, the title screen says Steven Spielberg presents Freakazoid, just like the other shows and the Pinky and the Brain series, which premiered, later on. Anyway, now then. Bruce Timm, of course, was best known as a producer of the DC animated universe. Originally intended for the series to be a straightforward superhero action-adventure series with comic overtones, but Spielberg requested it to be a flat-out comedy. The show is similar to fellow Ruegger-led programs like Animaniacs, for example, having a unique style of humor that includes slapstick, fourth-wall-breaking parody, surreal humor, and pop culture references. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. One other show premiered on Kids WB the same at that time was Earthworm Jim. Now, the show's title character is the alter ego of a geeky 16 or 17-year-old student of the aptly titled Harry Connick Jr. High School, Dexter Douglas. His name alludes to the alliterative names that superheroes commonly have. Dexter gains his abilities from a computer bug activated by a secret key sequence accidentally typed by Dexter's cat, Mr. Chubbykins. Freakazoid has enhanced strength, endurance, speed, and agility, as well as access to all of the internet's knowledge. He can't fly, but often runs around with his arms extended and making whooshing sounds with his mouth, pretending he is. His base is the Freakalair, a parody of the Batcave, built by his mute butler, Ingmar, which contains a hull of nifty things to know and a mad scientist lab. His greatest weakness, as he explains to the head of Apex Microchips, Armando Gutierrez, is graphite bars charged with native ions. He also expresses a great aversion to poo gas. Freakazoid also has several other abilities. He once developed telekinesis powered by anger, and once crossed the globe to yell at Tibetan monk. He also has not the same, but the ability to assume the form of electricity and cover long distances instantaneously, although he often simply sticks his arms forward and runs while pretending to fly. Dexter can change into and out of Freakazoid at will with the respective phrases freak out and freak in. Freakazoid spends his an active time in an area of Dexter's brain called the Freakazoid, where he reflects and watches Rat Patrol reruns. While the show is set around Washington, D.C., the locale often varies with its humor, taking Freakazoid to locations around the world, which each week he goes all around and just gets all sorts of craziness. Anyway, let's see. The show actually ranked on at number 53 on IGN's top 100 animated series list. Now, of course, the series had many segments. Primarily in the show's first season, each of these episodes have their own theme songs and title cards and occasionally appear in the main show. Those included Lord Bravery, that focuses on Nigel Skunkthorpe, a superhero from the UK who resembles a Roman soldier who and does not do much in the way of superheroics, as he's snooty, cynical, and unwilling to do unpleasant tasks. Likewise, he gets little respect and recognition from the public and his wife and mother-in-law with whom he lives. Lord Bravery later appears in the episode Freaka Panel, where he, the Huntsman fanboy, and Moron, yeah, I'm about to get to Huntsman in just a second, they confront Freakazoid about why they were dropped from the show. Now, the Huntsman is Marty Phoebe, a Robin Hood like hero who lives in the woods and gained his powers from corn that an elf gave him for saving his life. When summoned by the horn of urgency blown on top of the city's police department, the Huntsman takes action and races to the city to fight crime. To his dismay in his episodes, he rarely finds crime to fight. Yeah. Then there's the lawn gnomes. Batfin, Huska, Hana, and Quist. They are a group of trickster gnomes who come to life at night in a parody of Gargoyles, the Disney animated series. The wizard Rathgar placed a curse on the gnomes that transformed them into inanimate guardian gnomes during the day and will only be lifted if they reform and do good for the people. Then there's the character of Toby Danger. Now, Toby Danger is a parody of Giant Quest that was originally written for a standalone short for Animaniacs, but slotted into Freakazoid to fill time. It features the adventures of the titular character along with his scientist father, Vernon Danger, who, fun fact, was actually voiced by the late great Don Masick in one of his final series, who of course was the actual original voice of Dr. Quest. His adoptive sister Sandra, and Vernon's bodyguard, Dash O'Pepper, who is actually voiced by Granville Van Dusen, who voiced Grace Bannon in the 1986 Giant Quest series. And finally, there's Fat Man and Boy Blubber. This is the misadventures of two overweight superheroes in a parody of Batman. Their only segment involves them coming to the aid of an overweight boy who loves sweet buns and is being tormented by bullies. Yeah. Anyway, though this was one of Kids WB's first entries, the series originally struggled in the ratings, but it but it got canceled after 24 episodes were produced and aired over the course of its 2 seasons, with an overall total of 49 segments. However, and that was a short run. But anyway, and the show ended on June 1st, 1997, just 2 years after it premiered on September 9th, 1995. However, a few months later, the show later got picked up by Cartoon Network for reruns, and a fan following elevated it to become a cult hit. There was to be, the studio was considering renewing it for a third season, but deemed it to be too expensive, unfortunately. Nevertheless, I feel like this series, while I've seen some of Freakazoid in the Cartoon Network reruns, since we unfortunately never did have the WB network at first from day one, I will say this show is pretty hysterical. The show has been released on physical media. Both seasons are available, but To stream it, well, we don't know. I think I read somewhere it's gonna come to Tubi sometime, but a date is unavailable at the moment. So the only way I can tell you to find full episodes of Freakazoid would have to be on the Internet Archive. So anyway, that's all I know. So anyway, yeah, this show is absolutely very comical. Now, Freakazoid actually did make cameo appearances in I think a couple of Animaniacs episodes. Yeah, well, he did make one actual appearance. I think one was just non-speaking. In 2020, Freakazoid actually got to appear in an episode of Teen Titans Go on Cartoon Network. Yeah. So, anywho, I gotta say, this was really a crazy show. Please stand by. Okay, when Freakazoid premiered, it aired in the 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock Central slot, where it went up against several hits. Among those included Fox's Spider-Man animated series for a little bit, and then the Spooktacular New Adventures of Casper. Was for NBC and their Bloomin' TNBC lineup that was facing reruns or new episodes of Saved by the Bell, The New Class. On CBS, it was faced up against another crazy superhero flick, and that was The Mask. And as for ABC, it at first went up against Fudge for the first few months going into the winter, and then faced Hypernauts, and then the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show. Yes. Now, as for the second season, however, let me, yeah. Now, they actually at first had it in the 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock slot, where it was faced off against, well, at first with Fox, at first it was with X-Men, and then later on with Life with Louie. For NBC, it was going up against California Dreams. CBS had Secrets of the Crypt Keeper's Haunted House in the way, and ABC had Bone Chillers for its first bit. Yes. But then later on, it was sent to the 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock central slot, where it faced, from which that was once occupied by the Sylvester and Tweety mysteries. For just the rest of October, and it faced off against Seabear and Jamal on Fox. Nothing was on NBC except for the Today Show, and CBS had a little bit of a jumbled lineup with. But right about that time, they were showing the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat. And as for ABC, it was going up against Jungle Cubs. So there you have it. So now I can. So that's what you now know about how Freakazoid ran. A short-lived show, but overall it was pretty fun. Stand by. Now for our voice acting cast, we have Paul Rugg voicing the titular character of Freakazoid. Of course, he recently lent his voice to Animaniacs and then also later on to Pinky and the Brain, as well as to another show from Warner Brothers that Tom Ruegger had worked on, and that was Hysteria, which came out a year after Freakazoid's cancellation. He also later lent his voice to the Buzz Lightyear Star Command animated series, as well as Dave the Barbarian, American Dragon, Jake Long, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. And to this day, he has been doing stuff for the DreamWorks animated spin-offs of their hit movies. More recently, he lent his voice to one character in the recent Hulu reboot of Animaniacs. Now, as for his alter ego of Dexter Douglas, he's voiced by David Kaufman, who, of course, would later go on to voice Danny Phantom. And of course, I actually have seen him on shows. I mostly knew him best as Dwayne Preston of TBS's first ever original sitcom, Down to Earth. And he also lent his voice to Jimmy Olsen on Superman, the animated series, which debuted the following year after Freakazoid debuted. For the rest of the cast, we have, playing as the Douglas family, we have Tress MacNeille, who recently voiced Gadget on Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers and Babs Bunny on Tiny Toons, and Dot on Animaniacs, voicing Dexter's mother, Debbie. John P. McCann voices Dexter's father, Douglas. Googie Gress voices Duncan Douglas, Dexter's older brother. And voice guy Frank Welker does the vocal effects of Douglas's pet cat, Mr. Chubbikins. Ed Asner, who I'm sure you know that man of TV's Lou Grant fame, and of course later of Disney and Pixar's award-winning hit Up, voices Sergeant Mike Cosgrove. Craig Ferguson as Ryan McStew. Steph is voiced by Tracy Rowe. Hans is voiced by Larry Cedar of Square One TV fame. Ed Gilbert, who lent his voice to shows like Brave Star and Captain Planet and others, voices the character Professor Haney. Jonathan Harris of Lost in Space fame voices Professor Jones. Oh man, the list goes on. Paul Dini even lends his voice to one character as Expendable Lad. Oh, and there's also enemies of Freakazoid like the Lobe, voiced by David Warner from Titanic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, and The Omen. Cobra Queen, voiced by Tress MacNeille. Cave Guy, voiced by Jeff Bennett, another big star of Warner Bros. Animation, impersonating Jim Backus. And there's Longhorn, voiced by Maurice LaMarche. Armando Gutierrez, as I've mentioned, voiced by Ricardo Montalban. Oh, there's so many others. Waylon Jeepers, Invisible, Booger Beast, Deadpan. Oh, again, the list goes on. There's just so many of these voices to mention, but you get what I'm saying and what have you. But anyway, it's just such a long list of great characters. Well, I haven't seen Freakazoid in such a long time. I am going to say this is kind of an underrated show from what I've seen of it. But let me tell you something. This show is absolutely zany and crazy and what have you. But I've got to say, this is absolutely very, very funny. Well, I really don't want to try and show too many pics. I'm too scared I might get in trouble with the you-know-who's again. So I'm not going to take a chance. Just show you the actual show's title and what have you, but that's it. But anyway, I'm sure you'll know who the rest of the cast are when you see them, okay? So anyway, Freakazoid is definitely worth looking into. I mean, if you liked shows like Tiny Toons or maybe Animaniacs, which were done by Spielberg, then I think you'll enjoy Freakazoid. It's absolutely zany, absolutely bonkers, and very, very funny. So, what did you think of Freakazoid? Did you ever see this show when you were growing up? If so, let me know in the comments section below. If you like this video, consider clicking the like button, ring the bell for notifications, and be a part of the Big D Nation. Continue to help support my channel, and you know the rest. And join me later tonight when I review Christy in a spoiler-free review. If you didn't read my comment on my post section on my page, I recently made a slight change of plans. I'm going to be reviewing Christy tonight, and I've sent Sarah's oil to tomorrow. Okay? So if you like this, check out some of these other zany heroic shows. Well, here's one of them. Check out my Saturday Morning TVLog on The Mask, which premiered the same year this did, in 1995. Or go to the upper right-hand corner. You can check out an earlier zany superhero show in one of the most viewed Saturday Morning TVLogs on the channel, The Mighty Heroes from the mid-1960s. Or if you like some other crazy characters, check out last week's Saturday Morning TVLog, the 300th Saturday Morning TVLog I did, and it's Two Stupid Dogs. And the bottom right-hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe if you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., as well as the Saturday Morning TVLog, then I'm your guy. Thanks for watching, and next week's Saturday Morning TVLog is Mr. Bogus. So until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.